This is not a psalm you read calmly. This is a psalm that interrupts you. Stop everything for a moment, because what you are feeling right now is not coincidence. If your heart is accelerated, if your thoughts feel pressed, if you sense that something in your life cannot wait anymore, this message is already doing what Psalm 70 was designed to do. It awakens urgency. This psalm is short because delay is dangerous. It does not comfort your waiting, it confronts it. There are moments when patience becomes disobedience and silence becomes fear dressed as wisdom. Moses understood this. He knew there were seasons when waiting would destroy what obedience could still save. That is why Psalm 70 exists. It is the prayer of those who feel time closing in, of sons and daughters who sense that help cannot arrive tomorrow without costing something today. This is not desperation. This is divine timing pressing against human hesitation. If you ignore this moment, it will return heavier. Delay has consequences the mind tries to soften, but the soul already knows the truth. Some doors close quietly. Some opportunities expire without noise. And the fear you feel right now is not meant to paralyze you. It is meant to wake you up. You exist, you are aware, and something cannot wait anymore. That awareness is the beginning of alignment. Stay here. What comes next will expose why this psalm is changing lives. I exist, and time is no longer on my side. This realization does not arrive gently. It arrives like pressure in the chest, like thoughts racing faster than explanations can keep up with. You are alive, capable, still standing, yet surrounded by deadlines that feel invisible to everyone else. Threats that others minimize, delays that cost more than people admit. Moses lived inside this tension. He knew that doing nothing could be as destructive as doing the wrong thing. Urgency is uncomfortable because it removes the illusion of control. It forces you to admit that comfort is no longer an option. Many people mistake urgency for fear, but there is a holy urgency that comes from clarity. God allows urgency not to torment you, but to align you. Calm is not always proof of peace. Sometimes it is proof of avoidance. The soul recognizes when a moment demands action, even when logic argues for delay. Psalm 70 was written for this exact state of being. Alive, alert, aware that silence is no longer safe. It is the prayer of those who cannot afford polite faith anymore, those who need movement, not explanations. Moses recognized that delay could cost destiny, not only his own, but the lives connected to his obedience. That is why urgency can be sacred when it is rooted in truth. If you suppress this urgency again, it will not disappear. It will turn into regret disguised as wisdom. The pressure you feel now is a signal. You exist, and existence under pressure demands response. What you do with this awareness determines whether time becomes your enemy or your ally. Therefore, I perceive the void, and this time it feels dangerous. Silence no longer feels peaceful, it feels heavy. Waiting stretches your nerves. Every hour that passes carries the same question: what if help comes too late? This is the void Psalm 70 exposes, not the quiet of rest, but the gap between urgency and response. The space where promises exist, yet intervention has not arrived. This void does not whisper, it presses. Moses faced this tension more than once. He stood between threat and deliverance, between what God had spoken and what reality seemed to deny. The danger of this void is not pain, it is panic disguised as logic. The mind starts negotiating. Maybe God forgot, maybe the moment passed, maybe I should accept less. That is how the void tries to reshape identity. It convinces sons and daughters to lower their expectations before God ever answers. Silence becomes dangerous when it is misunderstood. God's quiet is not absence, it is alignment under construction. But urgency makes silence feel unbearable. That is why Psalm 70 does not linger in poetry. It cuts straight through the void with a cry meant to pierce heaven quickly. Make haste, O God. That sentence exists because there are moments when delay feels lethal to faith. This is where fear sharpens. Not fear of God, but fear of being overlooked, forgotten, underestimated. The void tests whether you trust timing or surrender to panic. Yet here is the twist the void hides. The pressure you feel is proof that movement is near. The tension is not random. It is the sound of alignment forming beneath the surface. If you abandon faith now, you leave just before the shift. Stay present. The void is not the verdict. It is the threshold. And the next realization will expose why silence lasted this long. Therefore, I recognize my fall, and this realization cuts deeper than guilt. The fall was not only in what I did, but in what I delayed. Silence felt safer than truth. Waiting felt wiser than acting. Fear disguised itself as patience, and I accepted it without resistance. This is the fall Psalm 70 exposes. Not rebellion, but hesitation. Not denial of God, but negotiation with urgency. Moses saw this in himself. He knew moments where speaking sooner could have spared suffering, where obedience delayed became obedience denied. This recognition is painful because it removes excuses. You see clearly now that time was not neutral. Delay shaped outcomes. Silence had consequences. Many sons and daughters carry regret not because they chose evil, but because they waited while something precious bled. That is why this moment feels heavy. You are not only facing what happened, but what could have changed if courage had come earlier. Fear intensifies here because recognition threatens identity. It whispers that you waited too long, that the window closed, that opportunity expired. This is where many stop. They confuse awareness with condemnation, but recognition is not a sentence. It is an invitation. Moses recognized his hesitation, yet God did not remove his calling. He refined it. That is the plot twist guilt never predicts. God corrects timing without canceling destiny. This realization hurts because it matters. If it did not matter, you would not feel this weight. Recognition is the fracture where truth enters. Do not numb it. Do not minimize it. This is the moment honesty prepares the heart for a cry that changes direction. What comes next determines whether this fall imprisons you or propels you forward. Therefore, I cry out for help, and this cry does not ask for permission from time. It does not negotiate with fear. It does not wait for conditions to improve. It erupts because silence has become more dangerous than exposure. This is the moment Psalm 70 was written for. A prayer that refuses delay. A cry that does not explain itself because explanation wastes time. Make haste, O God. That is not poetry. That is survival. Moses understood that heaven responds to alignment, not elegance. When urgency is honest, it carries authority. This cry is not panic. It is clarity sharpened by pressure. It rises when pride collapses and calculation fails. When the soul finally admits that waiting longer will cost more than acting now. Fear tries to interrupt here, warning you that crying out looks weak, impulsive, reckless. But fear loses power when truth speaks faster. This is where the shift happens. The cry realigns your position. You move from silent observer to active participant, from passive waiting to bold dependence. Psalm 70 teaches that God does not reject urgency when it is rooted in truth. He honors it. The cry cuts through the void because it agrees with reality. I need help now. That sentence dismantles delay. Do not postpone this moment. Do not promise yourself you will act later. Later is how urgency dies quietly. Write this prophetic phrase now, with intention and authority. God, make haste to help me. and I receive your intervention now. Write it as a declaration, not a request. This is not engagement, this is alignment. This is giving direction to your faith. Stay with this moment. Something has moved. And what comes next will change how you interpret urgency forever. Therefore, I am fulfilled, not because everything resolved instantly, but because alignment replaced chaos. This is the resolution Psalm 70 delivers before outcomes change. Fulfillment arrives when urgency stops fighting faith and starts agreeing with it. Peace settles not because the threat vanished, but because direction returned. Moses learned this truth. God's speed restores dignity before it changes circumstances. When heaven responds, it often restores clarity first. Here is the final twist urgency never explains. Fulfillment does not wait for visible victory. It anchors you while movement unfolds. The pressure that once suffocated you now sharpens your focus. Fear loses its authority because timing is no longer your enemy. You are no longer stuck negotiating with silence. You acted, you cried out, alignment happened. That is why Psalm 70 is changing lives. It teaches sons and daughters to move with God instead of waiting against Him. Notice what shifted. The night no longer threatens you. Waiting no longer terrifies you. You are fulfilled because you are no longer alone inside urgency. God did not shame your haste. He met it. That is why peace feels immediate. Fulfillment is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of restored momentum. If this message reached you, it is because others need it too. Help spread the word of God by subscribing to this channel and liking this video. This tells YouTube this content is uplifting and allows it to reach more people who are still trapped in silence, delay, and fear. Now, seal this moment. Wherever you are, pray the Lord's Prayer slowly and intentionally. Let these words ground you in alignment and rest, not because everything is finished, but because God is near and moving.